What is up? What is up? YouTube, how y'all doing, man? This is the third and final chapter for us. FBI agent exposes P ring. Man, this thing right here is educational. It gets you to start kind of understanding, not like how they think, but how they operate in the world. What to look for, what not to look for, what should you be, how to protect your kids from stuff like this, man. He talked about in the second one, he talked about how they groom the parents so they can get close to the kids. And from an FBI agent and something, they train with this stuff, So I thought it was interesting. Watch part 1, part 2, try to watch them in order. This is long. This thing is 3 hours long, so we had to break it up. I thought we was going to break it up in twos. Then I got tired and I had to go. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. Let's check it out.
We're kind of going over the names. We're trying.
Let's back up. Let's back up a little bit.
Would it be okay if I contact you and we can talk about this? Because I'd like to write an article for the magazine about protecting people in prison. And he was very open.
He had to make his way into this man group that like little boys. It's a group, and they having these meetings and stuff, just to bring y'all up to date a little bit. And they got a magazine out or whatever. They got to pay dues and all this stuff. So he started writing for the magazine. They accepted him in so quickly that he ended up, I think you're supposed to have X amount of years in before you can go to these main meetings. And the first time he couldn't go because he ain't have enough years in. Then they said, come on, man, we know you good. Come on in. Because he helped so many people. He was writing letters and stuff to people in jail and all this stuff, So he's almost amazed over how, I know people and I know I can smell a rat when I know one. And he's like, oh, really? But they accepted him and they telling him all kinds of stuff. And he got a wire. So let's keep going.
I contact you and we can talk about this because I'd like to write an article for the magazine about protecting people in prison. And he was very open. He was very cordial, very open to everything. So we're kind of going over the names. We're trying to figure out. There was one guy, Steve Irvin, was a special ed teacher out of Pittsburgh. I didn't have his contact information. He had checked. He and I had a private conversation during one of the breaks, and he said that he had traveled down to somewhere in the Bahamas or with a previous NAMBLA member who had died, and they'd had a really good time with their travel, implying that they'd had sex down there. So I said, oh, well, I know David, the international flight attendant, he's talking about a sex and travel. Why don't you talk to him? So Steve goes and talks with David. So now David says to me, oh, I talked to Steve, and Steve would like to go on a trip. And I said, I don't have his contact information. And David says, well, I didn't get it. So I contacted Peter Melzer and said, hey, Steve Irvin said that he would be willing to work with me on the privacy pamphlet, which I'd been assigned the year before, which I never did get done. And so Peter ends up giving me the contact information for Steve Irvin.
Wow.
And I get a hold of him. I think I just met, he was a special ed teacher. So so now we got him. We get a hold of Paul Zipser. We got Paul.
Was there any chance of getting Peter, the president?
No. Oh, I would not have even. I would have been afraid to even touch him, especially after that letter came out.
Because he would have shut down the whole thing. You wouldn't have gotten anybody.
Yeah. And that was one of our fears from an investigative standpoint, that if I went outside the approvals of Todd and David that might get back to them, because Sam Lindblad was the guy I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't tell Todd and David, but I got a hold of Sam, and I just said, "Hey, I've got to fly over to Albuquerque. Would it be okay if we met and talk about the NAMBLA article?" He said, "Of course." So I flew in. This time I got my Mustang at the rental agency.
This time I got the Mustang.
Did my research, found one of the top restaurants in Albuquerque, decided, you go big or you go home. Your tax dollars are paying for this meal. So pick one of the 5-star restaurant in Albuquerque. We go in there. It's one of the best undercover meals I've ever had. I would give it 5 stars. And Sam goes into the details. He is paranoid. He knows that they're going through his trash. Now he explains how he doesn't even put his trash out in the container, because they had done a trash cover on him. When they'd taken his trash, in that trash cover, they had found notes that he had written to, I had a little 12-inch sidewinder, which we believe meant a 12-year-old boy. And he was tutoring people in the apartment, tutoring boys in the apartment complex. Had to sign up. I will tutor boys for free. Had talked about. I can't say that we ever knew anything happened, but in Colorado, where he used to live, he had a tunnel under his home.
What?
So I mean, this guy looks
Here we
like
go with them tunnels.
He's the real deal. He's who we want to go after.
He had a tunnel.
This is what, man. That's my next move, is to understand a little more about these tunnels. Are they digging out these tunnels? Are they making these tunnels themselves? I don't know. So let's keep going.
No matter where he used to live, he had a tunnel under his home. So I mean, this guy looks like he's the real deal. He's who we want to go after.
He had a tunnel under his home?
Yeah. I don't know that he had what was going on in the tunnel, but we knew about it.
And what was his occupation? What did he do for work?
He had been a special ed teacher, but then lost, once he went to prison but
had enough money to own a home and build a tunnel.
Yeah. He'd been married. I mean, he wasn't married when I met him. I don't know when he got divorced, but he was single when I met him. And we're sitting there, and we start to talk, and he says, I'm just so afraid that I'm being watched. And I said, Sam, that's why I picked this restaurant. I said, no cop could afford to eat here. And he laughed. He said, I really appreciate that. Well, 2 tables over were 2 FBI agents that were monitoring the meeting. Or 3 tables. Oh, my
God. Yeah.
They were just there to monitor the meeting, just to kind of write up the report that, yeah, Bob did meet with Sam, and, we observed this and all that. So I went in. I'm wearing a body recorder, and I bring a writing tablet and a small recorder. And I said, I want to interview you. I hope it's okay. It's hard for me to take notes because of my condition. So is it okay if I record our meeting, and I'll take rough notes? And he says, of course. Yes, of course. So I would turn the recorder on, and we just talk essentially about some innocuous things. And then at one point, Mark, I would shut the recorder off so he could see the recorder's being shut off, the stop button, it's not going around, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So how many boys have you really molested and groomed and everything? So he eventually admitted to molesting 70 boys and grooming 200.
What the
So
fuck?
then it was like, okay, well, let's go back on the record, So and of course I'm recording this on my body recorder. Wow. That he's saying all this. So now we go back on the record and asking more of the innocuous questions. At one point, we're just about done with the meeting, and I love this moment. I said, what is the one thing that you want the membership to know? And he balls his fist, and he looks at me, and he kind of closes his eyes and grimaces, and he said, be careful. There are so many sting operations out there. I didn't know it, at the time, just be careful. And it was like, yes, you're absolutely right. There are so many sting operations over there. So as we get done with the interview for
that's crazy,
for the magazine article, I said, I'm reluctant to bring this up. And he says, bring up anything. I don't care. Bring up anything. I said, well, I don't want this to get out, but several of us are putting up a trip to go down to Ensenada, and we'd like you to go. And would you be willing to go down and explain the details? He said, oh, that would be wonderful. I would love to go. And would it be okay if I bring a friend? And I said, of course. Well, I would like to invite Dick Stutzman, the guy who says, I don't know that I'm a sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam is on board. But now we have the issue. David and Todd had said, don't invite Sam because Sam is a convicted sex offender. But Sam was on the steering committee. He was voted onto the steering committee of NAMBLA, which even David, the flight attendant, the PhD psychologist, makes a big deal out of. That even bothered him that Sam is on the board because he thinks it would bring too much attention to NAMBLA. Mm-hmm. So I've got to I have to keep Sam from somehow getting this word to David and Todd. As we're getting closer to the date of when this whole thing is going to go off, and we're trying to figure out who we've got. So now Steve Irvin's agreed to go. We've got a hold of Paul Zipser. He needs to go. We've got Todd and David. Obviously, they're going. Then I break the news. I said, well, I have to tell you that I did meet with Sam, and he wants to go. But I think it's safe. I really do. I think you guys have to trust me. And there was some reluctance, but they said, okay, Well, and even David said, I like Sam. I'm just afraid of
getting caught,
of him bringing heat if he's being followed and everything. Well, now I'm working.
Now you got somebody dependent on
these 2 other undercover cases. So I'm working 3 undercover cases, and I really only had 1 undercover cell phone. So when my cell phone rang, I didn't know whether I was a macho international arms dealer or I loved 8-year-old prepubescent boys. And I was dealing with the Vietnamese gang in San Diego. I'd met with a guy. We were going to do a drug buy, but it was going to be a couple hours before the meth was going to show up. So I stepped away, and I'm in my car in a parking lot, and my phone rings, and I think it's probably one of the Smoking Dragon people, and I answer the phone, and it's Dick Stutzman, and he's calling me, and he says, "Look, I need to talk. Sam called me about going on this trip, and I'd like to talk to you in detail about it." Well, I'd already had my recorder running. My tape was prepared for the Vietnamese gang case. So I said, "Look, I am just getting ready to go into a bank to close on a loan. Can I call you back later this evening?" He said, "Yes, of course." So we finish up doing the drug deal with the Vietnamese. I go back to the FBI offices, get a new tape, and I'm sitting there. We had a room that was quiet, that was soundproof, so you couldn't any noises outside. So I called Dick Stutzman. "Mark, we're in the. I make the call. He says, 'Look, Sam called me. I'm worried.'" I said, "About what?" He said, "Well, my brother is a social worker. I've explained to him about this trip we're going on, and he says he thinks it's a sting operation." And I said, "Okay." So he literally laid out our operations order. He goes, "If I were the FBI," he said, "are you aware that Bush signed legislation that if you travel with intent to have sex with a minor, that's a violation, even if you don't have the sex? That's a new federal law." He lays out the statute. He says, "So if I'm the FBI, I would essentially just set up a phony travel agency and have us send in money to reserve a spot, and then as soon as everybody shows up, because we're traveling in interstate commerce, then you just arrest everybody. That's what I would do. And I'm sitting there, and I know I'm getting this smile on my face. I said, Dick, I understand completely. And he says, you know what? I don't even think I know you. And it was like I was kind of hurt. Dick, I sat across from you at dinner at the Brazilian restaurant where my stomach was upset and I was farting all night. You don't remember me? And I said, well, I was at the conference. Oh, you were? Now, keep in mind, Mark, there's only 17 of us at the conference. So it's like, okay, but you didn't remember me from the conference. So I said, well, I don't know what to tell you. I said, I've been in the organization for years, which really wasn't true. I've written for their magazine. I said, the reason I was with Sam was to write this article for the magazine. All I can tell you is my friend went down last year and nobody got arrested and he had a great time. And if you don't want to go, that's fine. I mean, I wouldn't go, but when we come back and tell you that we had a great time and we're going to go again, you'll probably be wondering, well, did they really have a great time or were they arrested and now they're working for the authorities? You know, it's a sting operation. And he goes, well, now that I know that you are part of the organization and that you're trusted and that you've convinced me, I'll go. So he sends in his money and
wow. I cannot believe he described the entire operation.
Laid the whole thing out.
Like
that's
crazy.
You
were listening to it like, you should be an agent. I mean, you're pretty good at setting up stings.
Yeah, could you just type this up for us and save me paperwork on the next time around on the renewal?
So now you have, what was it like?
So we ended up getting 7 guys that agreed to go on the trip. And we had set it up so that we were trying to make this as convenient and as cheap as possible. I mean, we couldn't make it free. I mean, that could cause some issues. I'm independently wealthy. I couldn't just say, hey, I'll pay everybody's airfare. Now, David did use points to get free flights for Paul. So Paul, Todd, and David flew into San Diego. The other 4 guys flew into Los Angeles. So they were going to get on the boat in Los Angeles and then come down to San Diego. And then the 7 of us, or the 8 of us then would go down to Ensenada for the BB&B. The problem that we had with this case was you have to meet the elements of the offense. So you have to travel in interstate or foreign commerce with the intent to have sex. The FBI had an issue with the case out of it was out of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal district in the west coast of California. It was a Disney executive out of, I believe, Seattle that had met a girl online who happened to be an undercover FBI agent posing as, a teenage girl. Mm-hmm. They were having chats back and forth, and he flew down from Seattle to have sex with the girl, with the 13-year-old girl, but he was coming to business meetings with Disney. So in his conversations, he had made the point that I'm coming down for business meetings. While I'm down there, let's meet up and let's have sex. Let's say, I'm kind of paraphrasing all this.
Right.
Well, his defense was that his primary purpose of travel was not to have sex. His primary purpose of travel was the business meeting. So therefore, he didn't violate the statute because that wasn't the purpose of his travel.
Even though you are a sick
I can't remember how that was ruled, but at that point, that was an element. So we had to...
This is the part of the government rules and regulations that I don't like. I don't care if it was 1%. Punishment should have been handed out. Some type of punishment.
In my conversations with everybody, I had to make it clear that you're coming, your primary purpose is travel. We didn't want David, who was in Chicago, saying, oh, it's snowing, it's cold. I'm just coming, I don't care whether we have sex. I'm just coming down there to get to warm weather. So I set up in all the phone conversations that their primary purpose was to go to the BB&B. Now I have to set up what are the sex acts that they want. We have to make it clear that they want sex. So my deal was that there are boys down there, but not every boy will do everything. So I need to know, one, what is your age of preference, which is a common question that's it's almost like who's your favorite football team, or I know you're a soccer fan, who's your favorite soccer team, that kind of deal. So what is your age of preference, and what sex acts do you want done? Do you want anal or oral, or what do you want done? So we had it very clear. Every one of the guys wanted between a 10 and 12-year-old boy, and I think almost everybody wanted anal sex. And so we get all this cleared on the tape. Now we have a somewhat of a jurisdictional issue. The California U.S. Attorney's Office read the statute to mean they didn't really violate the law until they got on the boat. The U.S. Attorney's Office in San Diego said once they've traveled, once they land in San Diego, they violated the law. So we have this. The issue comes up, we can't really arrest the guys in San Diego before we arrest the guys in L.A., but L.A. is saying they've got to get on the boat. So everyone's flying in on Thursday. They're going to get on the boat Friday morning, and that's when we will effect the arrest, when everybody's getting ready to get on the boat. In a conspiracy, typically most jurisdictions, if you can back out of the conspiracy. So I can negotiate to have my wife killed. I can talk about it. I can agree to pay you. But then at the last moment say, wait a minute, no, I don't want her killed. I'm not going to pay you. I don't want her killed.
I changed my mind.
Out of the conspiracy. So now I haven't violated the conspiracy laws because I backed out of the conspiracy. It doesn't rain much in California. It poured that whole week. We had what they call El Niños, and it's just pouring. I mean, you've got to be crazy to get on a boat in this weather. So everybody shows up in LA and San Diego on Thursday night. It's pouring all night. I'm worried that they're going to back out and just say, look, let's just go. Let's go next month.
They ain't backing out. They horny.
Let's wait till next year.
They
but
horny.
I'm not getting on the boat. At one point, I offered to the three guys that we had in San Diego, I just offered to them, look, I'll drive us across the border. Let's just get in a car and we'll drive across the border, because our U.S. attorney had already said they'd violated the law. No, we'll still take the boat. It's going to be okay. So we set it up. Again, it takes the boat a couple hours to get from L.A. It's Saturday. It's Friday morning. We get up. We're staying in a hotel. We're in the hotel room that night. I had some medical issues. I'd actually been in intensive care 2 days. The weekend before this came down, I'd been in intensive care. I had gotten out of the hospital on Monday. On Thursday, the NAMBLA guys are coming in. I had developed phlebitis in my vein from where they'd had the port in my vein. So I am sitting in the motel room with hot packs on, and I look like death warmed over, and I didn't have to act. So these guys were so generous and so kind. So we've got videotape, and I'm not saying a word, and they're just going over. Dave is going over all the stuff that happened in Thailand and Mexico. Todd is talking about an incident he had in Bahamas. Paul is talking about a boy that he had seduced using his Corvette. That was kind of his enticement to get boys. Talking about a situation where he was a big brother and his roommate saw him do something inappropriate and called Big Brothers. So they took the, so they're laying out essentially their criminal history.
All on your recording.
And all on the recording. And I'm just sitting there. And again, I mentioned that David's humorous, and Todd, who's the dentist, he's saying, I don't understand. I'm not sure a 10 or 11-year-old can essentially take anal sex, you know, and then they joke about, well, they'll be incontinent, but just give them Depends, you know, that the rest of their life. I mean, it was so cold. It was so, it was so dark. It was so depraved. It was so evil. The way they were joking about thinking they probably could damage these kids by doing anal sex, and it was just a big
joke,
just a big joke to them.
That's crazy, man.
So, I was sick, but it worked out perfect because we had a very quiet recording. We didn't have traffic. It wasn't at a dinner table in a noisy restaurant or something. We sit up the next morning. We get up. My case agent calls me. When we're having breakfast together, my case agent calls me and said, okay, they just arrested everybody in L.A. And I said, hey, that was the boat captain. They're leaving L.A. now. They're probably going to be down here in 3 hours. So I was like, now we got to drag this thing out for 3 hours. Let's hope nobody backs out. Eventually, I kind of look at my watch and say, okay, let's get ready. Let's go over to the harbor. And we were just a short distance. So we get in my undercover car. We're driving over. It's raining. We get out of the car. We got their bags. We're walking toward the dock where the boat is supposed to land. There is no boat, but where the boat is supposed to land. And all of a sudden I hear the shotgun rack and freeze, FBI, you're under arrest. And I let out this unmanly scream and, oh, I can't, what is the FBI? You know, all this kind of stuff. And one of my buddies was on the SWAT team. I throw my crutch up in the air and act like I'm fainting. And he catches me right before I land in a puddle. And so they cuff me, they cuff everybody. And
oh
take
my
everybody
God.
away. But, and then so again, it's one of those deals. I was arrested with them. So when they get in, you know, they're all kind of giving it up in the sense that, you know, Bob's telling this story. Bob, undercover Robert Wallace, is telling this story, and you're not telling us the same story, you know. So some of them are coming clean during the interrogation.
Wow.
We get into court.
Wow.
There isn't much they can do, but there's a motion filed for gross governmental misconduct because we were essentially offering sex. I never even read the motion, so I'm not sure what it was. But Todd, the divorced dentist from Dallas, had told his lawyer that I was too good, that I had to be a closeted boy lover because nobody could convince essentially professional boy lovers that they were one of them. So in the motions hearing that David's lawyer brought, David Mayer's lawyer brought, he raised the fact that I had played on his client's psychological issues. And I kind of laughed and I said, I never even took the course in college. Your client's a PhD psychologist. I'm playing on his issues. Because I knew that Todd had told his lawyer I was too good. When the prosecution, what is your name? Robert Heyman, what do you do? FBI agent. What is your specialty in the FBI? And I said, I specialize in undercover work. I listed 20 undercover operations that I had done because I wanted it on the record that, no, this isn't my first undercover case. No, maybe I am a closeted because that's why I was able to be successful and sort of went down what you and I have talked about in these podcasts.
This mafia,
contract dealer,
Russian gang, burglar,
international arms dealer, all this kind of stuff. And So those guys ended up.
Anybody that I tell my body to be to get my job done. I study every inch of arm dealer, drug dealer, little young boy dealers, cutting grass, anything I got to do to get this thing done. That's what I would tell them. Don't be mad at me because I'm good at my job. Y'all want to stop people, let's stop them.
International arms dealer, all this kind of stuff. And so those guys ended up, after they lost that motion, they pled out. And then we go, Sam Lindblad is the only one that actually went to trial. And
he said not guilty.
He pled not guilty and then was convicted and got 30 years.
Wow.
Jesus.
So everyone got convicted.
Yeah.
And do you know?
Oh, I kind of forgot. Jeff DeVore, my ordained minister / chiropractor, before we even went on the trip, he called me right before Christmas. The trip happened in February, so he called me right before Christmas to have lunch, and so I met with him for lunch, and he hands me a thumb drive, and he said, essentially, "Merry Christmas. I think you might find this interesting. I know you lost your computer crashed and you lost your pornography collection." So we went back and checked. There were 125 images of men having sex with boys and 8 videos of men having sex with boys on this, on what he'd given me. So we ended up convicting 7 members of NAMBLA's inner circle on travel with intent to have sex, and then we got Jeff for the distribution of child pornography, which that carried a minimum mandatory 5 years.
So he got 5 years for that.
He got 5 years.
Everyone else, do you know roughly how long it was?
Well, and that was disappointing. Sam Lindblad got 30,
that's good.
Which I was good. David R. Busby, Greg Nuska, who'd learned about it at the Boy Scout meeting. He ended up, I think he got 14 years, and all the rest got between 2 and 3 years. And again, it was frustrating. It was frustrating. The lawyer or the judge in L.A., a federal judge, a female, and you're bringing all this crap out. In the sentencing reports, all this is brought out about they want to have anal sex and everything. She says on the record, well, this is kind of sex light.
What?
Because there were no children actually harmed in this case. So it was sex light. So she gave him between 24 and 36 months. And it was just, you got to be kidding me. But it was.
But they went there for the explicit purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. They went there for the explicit purpose.
And some of them said on record that they had done things in the past.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that didn't factor in?
Everyone had traveled
before
in the past
to
do something.
On the record.
You see what I'm saying, man?
And that didn't factor into the sentence?
You see what I'm saying, man? Now you see why it's important to sit here for 3 hours so you can understand what's going on. It's like crime does pay. Think about it. I got this super duper craving for ice cream. Ice cream is against the law, but I've been craving it so much. And because if I get caught, I'm only going to do a year. And most people don't get caught. Golly, man. After all that government spent money, the man ate at a 5-star restaurant on our dime to make our world safer. Right? To make our world safer. And you got 2 other FBI agents sitting at the same restaurant. You think they sat there and drunk tea? All this staying in hotel rooms and all this rental cars, all this stuff. And you got to pay that judge money. my God. Are y'all getting this? Are y'all seriously getting this? Oh my God, man. We got to take matters into our own hands. And I ain't saying doing anything now. Somebody like me would get in trouble just saying we got to take matters into our own hands. Then they'll give me 10 years to try to help people. Help these kids, man. I can see why these kids are being taken advantage of. The stupid adults is not even cracking the whip. They not cracking the whip, man.
Everyone had traveled in the past to do something.
On the record. You were able to record all that.
Yeah, record all.
And that didn't factor into the sentencing at all? Like, oh, they claim to have done things?
Not for her.
Apparently it did.
I mean, that seems extremely lenient.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that a jurisdiction thing? Is that because it was Los Angeles?
I think so. I don't want to get into politics, but I learned I was always kind of a one-issue man, and it was like the judiciary, and we used to kind of joke. The Ninth Circuit is called the Ninth Circus. I mean, they've been overturned by the Supreme Court more than any other jurisdiction, and
oh, really?
Yeah, and so it's pretty liberal. But we used to kind of joke that, well, when you got to sign the case, which judge are you going to get, and then you can decide whether to work the case or not, because it's not worth to put in hard years, risk your life, work all these extra hours.
You hear this, right?
If the federal judge is going to end up giving probation or
you hear this, right?
Or something like that, which is why I became a fan of the minimum mandatory laws, because the judges, it took away a lot of their discretion.
Right.
That you've got to give them this amount of time.
If this had been tried in Florida or Oklahoma or something like that.
Yeah. Florida is, they're, I guess you could say, great on sex offenders. I mean, they, on sex crime, at least they were when I was on the job.
In terms of conviction.
Yeah.
And
sentencing and convictions. And
what happened to the rest of NAMBLA and to Peter?
They'd filed motions that I'd violated their First Amendment right of association, and that was all brought up in the David Mayer, the psychologist, in his motions hearing, how I violated the First Amendment. I mean, that was part of the gross governmental misconduct, that by infiltrating, I'd violated the First Amendment. The organization, as I understand it, it's still an online presence. They say they don't meet anymore. There's no real need for an organization or to meet, because you've got chat rooms now, and you've got other opportunities to meet people.
Zoom meetings.
A lot of this, what you found, it was just an opportunity for like-minded men to sit around and talk about it. Well, now you can go into a chat room and you never have to meet face-to-face, and you can talk about it. Or if you want to meet face-to-face, we just set up an appointment. We don't have to have a meeting that the FBI could possibly monitor. So if you go on, I think if you go on the website, it does say that they do have a membership, but I haven't seen too many letters to the editor on the age of consent laws.
So the former president, did he ever get convicted?
No, not in our case.
Nothing ever happened to him?
No, I don't.
Oh, wow.
Not to my knowledge. He may still be alive. He lives in the Bronx. You could have him on the show.
I'm okay. I mean, that's
good.
That's,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm almost, we've talked about this. This is not a pleasant conversation. This is not a pleasant podcast. I'm hoping that by talking about this, there isn't the David R. Busby, Greg Nuska that's out there listening going, oh, wow, there's an organization that supports all this. Well, let me join, type of thing. I'm hoping that
the opposite.
More of your listeners are thinking, boy, this is wrong. This is evil. This is disgusting.
And these people are really out there, and they're infiltrating and intentionally trying to get close to kids. I mean, that to me is like the most insidious part, is that they're trying to find proximity, and they're preying on vulnerable families that might not be, fully together in order to get what they want.
Absolutely.
And I wonder if there's more protections that people can take, specifically online. I mean, it's like so rampant online. As in a way to protect kids. I'm curious if you've read anything, or even in your work as things have kind of modernized. Do you have any advice?
That's not really my expertise, but I do know there are organizations out there. I think if you Google it, there are ways to identify websites, or at least there are ways to keep websites off your children's phone. That type of thing. Obviously, from a kid's standpoint, that's what we worry about. One of is kids getting access to these type of pornographic websites. And one of the biggest problems that the FBI is seeing now is sextortion, where you kind of have two different groups. You've got the predators that live here in the United States that go online posing as a little kid or a teenager or whatever, and go into these chat rooms or whatever they're called now, and making connections, and then let me send you a picture of me naked. And of course it's not him, because it's a 50-year-old guy in a basement, and sending the picture, and then saying, okay, now you send me your pictures. And that person succumbs and sends a picture of himself or herself. Well, now the predator has that picture, and it's, if you don't send me more pictures, I'm going to expose you. I know which school you go to because you've told me all about you. You've told me your friends. I've actually hacked into your computer. I know your contacts. I know your Facebook page, your Instagram page. I'm going to post this. If you don't send me more pictures, I'm going to post it. The others are, it's happening here in the United States, but essentially guys from overseas that are doing the same thing. And if you don't send me $500 or $1,000, I'm going to post your pictures. And so these kids are doing it. It's all over the country that good kids are getting caught up in this and end up committing suicide or something, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be exposed. I can't afford the money. This is going to ruin me. I'm not going to be able to get into college, or I'm going to lose my job. So they've committed suicide.
From the FBI's perspective, what is the best way to handle that if you are entrapped in that type of extortion scheme?
Come out, tell your parents, tell the police, contact the FBI, and the FBI are working those cases. And I know I don't know how recently, but within months, they've gotten extradition on some guys out of Uganda that were setting this up.
Really? Oh, wow. So there is some legal recourse. You can actually go get them.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's good.
But it's one of these things that's going on. I mean, the internet is great. It's done a lot to make society better, but it's done a lot to make society worse. And it's a tool that can be used for good or evil, just like everything else.
Yeah. Are you proud of the work that you've done with the NAMBLA case? Are you happy with the outcome? Do you think the FBI should continue to do these types of cases? Are they continuing to do them? Like, how do you feel everything kind of wrapped up?
Yeah, no, I'm extremely proud of the work we were able to do with NAMBLA. The fact that essentially that organization is just an online presence, and we put a dent in it, and we took some predators off the street for a little while, at least. Some of them are still in,
but they're on the registry for life.
They're on the registry for life. We ruined their lives.
Well, they ruined their lives.
They ruined their lives. Yeah, and we exposed them, and we protected kids. I think one of the toughest emails I got early on when my book first came out was an email from somebody, and he said, "I read your book. Thank you so much. I wish there was someone like you out there protecting me when I was getting molested. And so it's kind of like, well, if we've protected one or two boys, I mean, Sam Lindblad, 30 years, he groomed 200 and admitted to molesting 70. Well, he's not doing that now. And let's hope that if there's any molestation taking place in the prison system, it's him that's getting it.
Well,
so.
Bob, I appreciate the time. This is I've done a lot of podcasts, and I've talked to a lot of people that have done and seen and experienced crazy things, and this is probably the most disturbing. But by the end of it, I'm extremely grateful for your work and what you've done, and I'm optimistic that there's more people like you, both in sort of private security as well as the bureau and government agencies that are going after people like this and really trying to take down these people with malignant intentions for kids across the country and across the world. I mean, sex trafficking it seems like it's only going up. I've read some vague numbers that globally it's huge, and sex tourism is huge, and it's happening in America more and more. And it I don't know. I'm grateful that there's people like you that are out there really taking these guys out and putting them in prison. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you having me, because I've done some other podcasts, and quite frankly, not as good as yours. I mean, I enjoyed this. Is the first time I've done an in studio. Usually it's a Zoom call, but when I was first contacted by Jaime, and you said you wanted to do NAMBLA, it's like, yeah, most people don't want to even talk about it. I want to steer clear of it. So I thank you, and I admire you for being willing to take this on. Now let's just make sure you air it. But yeah, I mean, it's not a pleasant topic, but it's out there. So wake up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bob. Let's do this again soon. Next time you're back in New York. All right.
Okay, doke. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Okie doke. That's amazing, man. One of the most amazing things I think is, after they did all that work and set up, years of a sting operation, and you give the person 1 year in jail when they done admitted on camera and they going across state lines to hurt little kids, and they don't even care. They said they did it before. What is wrong with the world? What is wrong with us, man? The part I like was how quickly. Here's the thing, man. These people are so gullible because they want to be accepted. So they know how I feel not to be accepted, and they want to be accepted so bad that they don't want to not accept other people. So getting into a thing with these men, and you afraid, I don't want, look, man, I don't want to, because, I'm scared, man, because I'm scared too. So you so busy trying to, puff up and secure that person. This man is scared, but he's scared for a different reason. He's scared because he don't want y'all to catch on that he's the po-po. You know what I'm saying? So that worked to his advantage, So you gotta, when people are acting, even in the Hollywood, you get too deep into the Joker, because you got to play this part and make it believable. That's why it's called In Too Deep. Yeah. So I'm glad I watched this, man. I'm glad I watched this. It was so many different things, man. Love your kids. Parents, love your kids. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't give them everything they want, but talk to them. Let them know that they can talk to you. You don't have to spoil the kids. That's not parenting. You don't have to beat the kids and spank the kids. That is not parenting. Let the kids clearly be able to open up to you. Ask your kids, do you feel as though this is yes or no? I ain't gonna get mad at you or anything if you say yeah or no. This ain't gonna be no long conversation. I can hear it now. Oh, Mom, what? I just want to ask you, do you seriously, honestly believe that you can tell me anything that's on your mind? anything. Ask them that. I'm not going to get mad if you say, no, Mom, I can't tell you nothing. Then you need to work on stuff. I just want to know, and it's going to be a yes or no and the end of the conversation. And keep your word. If they say, no, Mom, I can't tell you anything, don't sit there and, well, why not? I'm your friend. I'm your mother. Well, go to your room. No. Yes or no, and cut it off. If they say yes, give them a hug and tell you I love you. And I'm trying to be the best mom I can be. Let them know love is in the house. That's all. That's it. Half of this stuff I can't believe I'm saying. Look here, I'm going to get on up out of here. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Tell them Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out.